Rui, I'm Zach Lee Bow, and I just said hello in one of the languages of Kujaksi. You probably haven't heard of it because it's not very well known in our world, but I'm hoping to change that. Kujaksi used to be a thriving magical land full of joy and adventure. The people there lived in peace. Until the Kijrek grew jealous and ruined everything. But you don't know what Kijrek are because they don't exist in our world. Come to think of it, they don't really exist in Kujaksi anymore either. At least, nobody's seen one for several centuries. Well, the Kijrek were magical creatures that's not important right now. Anyway, I have a friend from Kujaksi, and they've been telling me a true story from their world. I've been writing it down in this book, and I'm so excited to share it that I couldn't wait for it to be finished before I started sharing it. It's about a brother and sister who were forced from their home in the middle of the night, and you know what? Why don't I just let the story speak for itself? Are you ready? Okay. The Kijrek, written by Kijrek, localized by Zach Lee Bow. Chapter 1, Escape to Dragon Fang Mountain. If you stand at the edge of the ever-dying forest and look to the north, you will see the jagged edges of a lonely mountain cutting through the sky. Throughout most of the year, the base of the mountain is obscured by a thick shroud of snow swirling around and blanketing the land. It's as if the mountain itself exudes the snow to deter outsiders. This is the state you find it in now. And though every fiber of your being is screaming at you to turn back to the warmth of your forest home, you know that for you, the forest is now dead. The only path left to you lies ahead, obscured in uncertainty and awful, dreaded snow. As you step from your home's orange leaf carpet, your foot is plunged into a biting layer of snow and ice. The moment you leave the forest's embrace, its warm autumn air is torn from your lungs by the mountain's unforgiving chill. The unknown magic that keeps the forest in its autumnal state has no effect beyond its borders, and you can feel this comforting magic peel from your skin as you step away from the forest's edge. In this moment, as the mountain looms ahead of you, the forest's alluring magic tempts you to turn back. Yet, you must resist. You must face the mountain's harsh domain, where there is darkness behind you. As bleak as it seems, your only hope is to keep moving forward. As you plunge into this alien world of white, your eyes begin to sting, and you long for the warm browns and burnt oranges of your home. Here, even the trees are white. The few that dare grow scattered across this barren land are gnarled beyond recognition. Their branches twist into ghastly faces, their mouths agape in abject horror. You can almost hear them shrieking at you to fly from this place of death. Nevertheless, you continue toward the mountain. Soon, the snow reaches your knees and hinders your progress as you struggle against its frigid grip. A ruthless wind suddenly slaps you across the face and kicks snow up over your head. Before it can settle, heavy gales rush you on all sides with the barrage of frozen fists. They wrap you in a bitter blanket of white so thick you can no longer see the mountain. All you can hear is the howling that emanates from the writhing mass surrounding you, which, surprisingly, reminds you of home. You long to be curled up in your cozy den, dozing to the familiar howls of the wolves romping outside. Comforted by this image, your body begins to succumb to the cold as you nod off briefly. But then this fleeting fantasy is shattered as the wolves abruptly tear into your den and drag you back to reality. Their now angry howls mimic the wind, and you can see their spectral shapes formed from the snow spiraling around you. Your terrified screams are lost in the storm as intangible sharp fangs snap at your legs, urging you forward. You cannot feel them. In fact, you can't feel anything. Your aching limbs and bleeding feet have gone numb, and you must fight to keep moving. Just as you are certain you couldn't possibly take another step, you break through the blizzard and collapse at the foot of the mountain. You might be surprised to learn that people live in this inhospitable place. The Northern Zeppin have carved out a difficult yet functional life for themselves in the caves of Dragon Fang Mountain. And if you were to actually make the grueling journey, you would inevitably meet them. However, I don't recommend it. The Northern Zeppin are wary of strange visitors, and if you attempted to reach the mountain in the middle of winter like this, you would almost certainly die before any Zeppin would even have the chance to decide if they'd welcome you. Yet, the 4 great-winged races, Zeppin, Wasser, Mecha, and Aya, are much tougher than humans, and 2 young Wasser managed to survive the journey to Dragonfang Mountain, much to the bewilderment of the Zeppin. The day the Wasser arrived was strange and stressful for everyone involved, especially the cat, who was exhausted from trying to keep its silly pets alive through the journey. Honestly, who would choose to set out into a blizzard in the middle of the night with no preparation or provisions? The cat, lanky but beautiful with black fur speckled with orange and white and a distinct orange-black split down its nose, was gripped tightly in the arms of the younger Wasser, a little girl who had only seen 5 years of life at that time. Her light gray wolf ears were flattened against her head so tightly that you could be forgiven if you missed them in her thick, dark, coily tresses, and her baby cheeks were so chapped by the wind that even the most hate-filled Zeppin would have felt a little bad for her for a brief moment. Tears streamed from her warm brown eyes, which she fought to keep wide open, too afraid to let them shut for even a second. Her small feathered wings, light gray and splashed with vibrant greens, blues, and purples, were folded tightly against her back, and her wolf legs and tail, covered in the same light gray fur as her ears, were pulled up as close to her chest as possible in an attempt to stay warm. Luckily, the cat was willing to share its body heat as it snuggled against her chest. The little girl was held in the arms of her brother, who felt it was his duty to keep her safe. After all, his 14 years of experience more than qualified him to be her sole guide and protector. His ears, dark gray with strands of rusty red, were pointed forward and straight out from his head, distinguishing them from his dark, tight curls, which he always kept short. His piercing gold eyes were squinted against the wind in angry defiance, daring anyone or anything to harm his precious cargo. His dark brown and rusty red wings, larger than his sister's as they were already almost fully mature, were spread around her to act as a shield from the wind. His tail, crusted with snow and covered in the same fur as his ears and legs, was held straight out and slightly up, even as he fought his exhaustion to remain upright. Both the Wasser had a small spherical object wrapped tightly in tan roots to hide its contents, which were securely tied to their wrists. The sister's was on her left wrist, and the brother's was on his right. They were also both naked, save for their feathers and fur, and a thin belt around the brother's waist which secured twin sheathed daggers shaped like oak leaves, and their bare chests and arms were numb from the cold. It may seem odd to you that they would travel through this frozen land without clothes, but their forest home was always the perfect temperature of autumn, warm, but with a crisp breeze, and their forced journey to the mountain was unexpected. It should also be noted that the Wasser believed that clothes are unnatural. If the great goddess Veckerwasser had intended for them to wear clothes, she would have formed their bodies with clothes already attached. Despite the brother's fierce determination, he collapsed shortly after breaking through the blizzard. He pulled a paw up out of the snow, and when he put it back down, his entire leg gave out and threw him toward the ground face first. Yet, he had enough strength left to protect his sister by repositioning himself to his side as he fell. The cat leapt from the girl's arms with a sharp yowl right before they all hit the ground, and it fixed its bright yellow eyes on the brother with a glare that said, "How dare you have the gall to drag us through this ordeal, only to let us down in the end?" The brother gave no response. He was focused on trying to force himself back up to get his sister to safety. But his bleeding paws would barely twitch at his commands. The frigid air burned his lungs, and he found it difficult to keep his eyes open. Tears began to pool in his eyes as he prayed. Dear Goddess, please help me get Kitty someplace warm and safe. I don't care if you have to animate my cold dead corpse to get her there. Just don't let her die. Rost? A small shaky voice broke into the brother's thoughts. At first he thought it might be Veckerwasser answering him, but then Kitty continued. Are you okay? Yes, Roz managed to croak. He knew it was a lie. If Veckerwasser didn't send them a miracle soon, they would both freeze to death, but he didn't want to scare her. A brief silence hung in the air until Kitty whispered what they were both thinking. I'm scared. I want to go home. I know, Roz replied, but we can't go back home. Why? Whimpered Kitty. Because... Roz trailed off, trying to think of an explanation that would spare his little sister from the harsh truth, even if just a little longer. But his frozen brain refused to cooperate. Frustrated, he snapped at her. Because we can't, okay? This sort of vague answer never satisfied Kitty, and she certainly never put up with harsh tones. So she crawled out of Roz's embrace and plopped herself down in front of him with a huff. Her legs and tail sank completely down into the snow, but she was too focused on making her point to care. She crossed her arms, puffed up her cheeks, wrinkled her nose, pointed her ears low and out to the side, and shouted with everything her little lungs could muster. That's not an answer! Her voice echoed loudly through the air, and the cat moved to her lap and sat with haughty approval. Roz stared at his sister in awe. This is Kitty, he thought, stubborn to the end. No matter what, she will never let go of her ideals. He briefly feared she was too much like their mother, but he quickly shoved that idea aside. This is all her fault, he thought, and Kitty is nothing like her. Kitty would never abandon her family for a human. Roz! Kitty barked to get his attention. You didn't give me an answer! A feeble, I know, was all Roz could muster. He studied his sister's face with sadness as he imagined her bright energy fading quickly, and his last shred of hope evaporated into the snowy sky. At a loss for any way out of this situation, he let his body go limp into the snow and stared vacantly at the sky as snow began to gather on his face. Several minutes slowly passed in silence as Kitty stared at her brother, waiting for a better answer. She grew impatient, so again she barked, Rost! When he didn't answer, even the cat began to worry. It stepped from Kitty's lap and perched on Rost's chest, gazing down at his blank face. After a moment with no response, it began to purr and knead its claws into his frostbitten skin. When he still didn't respond, the cat began to gently nibble on his fingertips. At this point, Kitty truly became scared for her brother. She knew he hated that cat and he'd never let it chew on him like that. So she crawled over to him and whispered, Rost, are you okay? Still, he did not respond. Kitty panicked and began to shake him and cry as she shouted, Roz, get up! We have to go! Shh, Roz responded sleepily as Kitty's ruckus roused him. He didn't seem to know where they were as the cold took its toll on his body, and he continued, Go back to sleep. We'll help Dad in the morning. What? Kitty asked before declaring, Dad's not here! This declaration forced a memory to the surface of Roz's hazy mind. Roz, get up! His father whispered urgently. You have to go! What? Roz asked groggily as he opened his eyes, and his father came into focus. Fuchsok looked like an older version of Roz, save for his warm brown eyes. Roz's golden eyes came from his mother's side, the Tuoks. Fuchsok's ears were flat against his head in fear, so Roz pressed. What's going on? You have to grab your sister and go. The Alpha's most trusted bishops will be here soon. She has commanded them to punish all Tuoks for Mock's sins. Roz rolled his eyes. That's not Mom's real name. Move, now, his father barked. We don't have time to argue. Roz was confused, so he continued, But, Mother Jaku, He corrected himself at his father's disapproving glance. The Alpha wouldn't punish all of us for Mom's sins. I know you don't like the High Priestess, but she is good and just. She's Veckarosser's chosen one for Fekhug's sake. Fugsuk uttered a soft growl at his son's use of foul language, but then he sighed as Kitty's cat began to wind itself between his legs. You are such a naive pup. I pray Veckarosser teaches you the truth on your journey, and I can only hope she is gentle. Roz was about to protest being called a pup. He was a full fledgling after all, but he was taken aback by his father's mention of a journey. Wait, what do you mean? I'm not going anywhere. Fugsuk's ears suddenly snapped up, and he froze as he listened intently. After he concluded the noise he heard must have been a harmless night critter, he continued with a renewed urgency. You and Kitty must escape to Dragonfang Mountain. The bishops won't follow you north, and there are some people who will take you in. But it's cold up there, Roz whined. I don't want to go. He had hardly finished his sentence when his father growled and pulled him up out of his bed and set him down onto his paws. The cat scurried out of the way and over to Kitty's bed. Fugsuk grabbed Roz's shoulders and pulled him in close, staring into his eyes intensely. Listen to me, he barked. You must go, or the bishops will kill you and Kitty without a moment's hesitation. Roz's ears flattened against his head, and his tail tucked itself firmly between his legs as he felt true fear for the first time. He swallowed the lump in his throat and whispered, But what about you? Fugsuk's ears twitched, but he held his resolve as he calmly said, I'll keep them busy to give you time to escape. He began to quickly tie a thin belt holding his spare daggers around Roz's waist as he hastily instructed, You will take Kitty to Dragonfang Mountain. You'll both be safe from the Alpha and her bishops as long as you stay there. Leave through the back tunnel while I meet the bishops at the mouth of our den. I'll give you as much time as I can, but you must head straight north and move quickly. Don't stop for any reason, and do not come back to Usavik under any circumstances as long as you live. The bishops will always be on the lookout for you. Dad, I don't understand why... I know, Raz's father interrupted him, but you have to trust me. This is Veckarosser's path for us now, and we must follow it. Fugsuk paused as he looked at his son for the last time. Remember, he choked as he held back tears, take care of Kitty. You are all she has now. The cat meowed from Kitty's bed, and Fugsuk couldn't help but chuckle as he amended, You and Galaxy. Then he blinked away a tear and swiftly left the room as he barked, Now go! Bolstered by his father's speech, Roz scooped a sleeping Kitty into his arms and set out through the back tunnel with Galaxy padding softly behind him. Roz! Kitty's worried face swam into his view as she shook him back to the present. You're not making any sense! He blinked as his eyes focused past Kitty's head and onto the figures circling high in the sky above them. He wondered aloud, Are those Oku here to take us to Veckarosser, or vultures waiting to eat us? Kitty gave Roz a quizzical glance before looking up to see what he was looking at. Those aren't Oku or vultures, she stated, then continued in confusion. They look like humans with wings. The pieces began to fit together, and Roz realized what the mysterious beings were as they circled lower. Reinvigorated by the memory of his dad's parting words, Roz shoved his body suffering to the back of his mind and struggled to force himself to his paws. He shouted to Kitty in a panic, Get up! We have to move! That's all I have for now. I'm a teacher, so I don't have a whole lot of time or energy, but I'm hoping to be able to get together with Eku again soon to work on Chapter 2. Thank you for listening to this story. It truly means a lot to me. The story and these characters have been with me for 17 years, and it's about time they finally got a chance to live. So thank you for giving them that chance to live. If you enjoyed it and you know some people who you think might also enjoy it, please share it with them. Thank you again, and I hope to see you for Chapter 2.